In this video, I'm going to discuss how we can use the UCS in order to manipulate which plane or coordinate system we draw on. So right here I have a cube, and if I try to draw a sketch, it'll sketch on the bottom plane of this cube because that's where my XY coordinate grid is, right? If I want to draw on one of the faces, I can do that. I can go into circle and I can hover over a face till it shows blue, and then I can draw there. And it doesn't work as well as I would like at times, but I'm able to do it for sure. But let's say I wanted to draw a circle, but I don't want to start on the top face, but I do want it to be on the plane of the top face. Well, I can't really do that. If I try to draw a circle, it'll always end up on the bottom. What if I try to do something like this where I hover over? Will it let me? Yeah, so that kind of lets me get away with that a little bit. Like I can do some hovering over and try to drag it, but that doesn't always work, and then you end up back on the bottom. So this can be a little bit annoying, the fact that it tends to want to draw things on that XY grid. Even when you hover over, it doesn't always work. Last week we ran into some problems when we were trying to draw on a cylindrical face. We couldn't because well, it was a little bit different than this cube. It wouldn't hover over properly, and I couldn't draw the circles I wanted to, so I needed to draw some construction lines and do some weird stuff. So what we need to do is actually move this coordinate system we're working on. So the default coordinate system is known as the WCS, or world, as in the Earth, the world coordinate system. And if you go under the view cube, you'll notice it says WCS. You can't click on it unless you hover over the view cube first and bring your cursor down. So work coordinate system is your default, where everything starts. Now what we want to do is we want to create a new user coordinate system if we want to draw on other planes. There's a couple of ways to do this. The basic one that'll always work is you can select new user coordinate system, and then it's going to prompt you to place this coordinate system. You'll first start with the origin, which will define a point along the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis, and then it'll prompt you to select one point on the x-axis. Since you've already selected the origin, that'll give you 2 points, right? Because you'll have the first point you selected, which is giving you 1 point on the x-axis, and then the second point you selected is another point on the x-axis, and then it'll prompt you for a point on the y-axis, so that way it can form its grid. For example, let's say I wanted to put my new coordinate system on the top of this cube. Well, what I would do is I would click on the corner, if I want to have it on the corner, and it sets the origin. Now, my x and y axes, they can be in a bunch of different places, and it'll change the location of the grid. But once I select a point on my x-axis, it'll form a line between the origin, which I've already selected, and the point I select to form where my x-axis will sit. And now I can select my y-axis. My y-axis can be up, it could be at an angle, but here I want to put it at the top of this cube, so I'm going to select a point along here. Now, because I've already selected the origin, this will define now 2 points on my y-axis, which will fix my y-axis in place. And if my x and y axes are set, then my z-axis will also be set after I've done that. And now my coordinate grid is up top, on top of this cube. And any sketch I draw, I don't have to hover or anything. It'll be on that top. And if I want to go back to the work coordinate system, it'll snap back. Now, there's another way where you can change your UCS, make a new UCS. You don't have to go under the view cube. You can also select this, I don't know what the name of this thing is, these 3 lines that form where the origin is, that identify these 3 axes form together. I think there is a name for this piece. I'll look it up and get back to you guys on that. But if we want to move this thing, we first select it, and then you can just change one of the axes. So let's say I wanted to snap the x-axis. Oh, that didn't work. If I wanted to snap the x-axis up here, I can click here, and it'll move my grid up there. It'll keep the y-axis where it is, and I can manipulate all 3 axes this way. But if I want to move everything, starting with the origin, I click on that spot, and then I bring the origin up here, and it'll just change the origin. So let's say you just want to change one thing. Well, you can do that by clicking and moving. And all this will do is it'll change one item. Now you can also, alternatively, you can click on this and move it over to a face. Now the origin will be in a weird spot, but sometimes it doesn't matter to you. Sometimes you don't really care that the origin's a weird spot. You just want to put your axis up top. Now the last way to change your coordinate system is the way I prefer using it most of the time, because I think it applies to all situations, and if you really understand it, you'll be able to do pretty much anything. So I'm going to click on New UCS again, and it's going to prompt me to click on where I want to place my origin. But this time, instead of clicking, I'm going to type in a coordinate. So I'm going to type in 0, 0, because I want my x and y to stay the same. My plan is to put my origin right up here at this corner. So I'm not going to change my x or y, but I do want the z to hop up. So I want the origin to be here, where it was down here. So I'm actually going to press comma again, and this will prompt me to enter a z value, and I'm going to enter the height of this cube, which is 5, and hit enter, and that moves my origin up to that spot, 0, 0, 5. And then just like before, I can select a point on the x-axis and a point on the y-axis, and that'll work too. You alternatively could have entered in points along that x and y axis. That works as well. But I find that this is really nice for just moving two planes apart. Because let's say I didn't have a cube, I just wanted to draw two sketches. Let me delete this guy. I wanted to draw one sketch of a circle here, and then I wanted another sketch that was 10 units up. Well, in that situation, if I go to New UCS, I really don't have anything to click on. I want to make a plane up top. I don't have anything I can click on it because I have no 3D object to work off of. So in this situation, I would type 0, 0, 10, and now I have an origin that's 10 units up, and I can type in values, but this snaps nicely at 90 degrees, so I can click here for my x-axis and click here for my y-axis, and now I have a plane that's 10 units up from the plane I drew on before, and I can draw another thing, and I can use some tools between those two sketches. This becomes very useful as we start to use extrude commands such as loft.